Hi everybody, and welcome to Traveling with Russell, and welcome to a very rainy Moscow. Welcome to a new convention video. It's right behind me. We're going to head on inside. The expo I'm going to take you for a walk around is called Mitex. It is the largest tool expo in Russia, and it's been held here in Krasnogorsk Expo Center, a rather well-known location in the northwest of Moscow. One of Moscow's largest shopping centers is just across the car park, called Vegas. And there is actually quite a number of convention halls here. This is the one that we need to walk in. You can see everybody outside. Very well known for Krasnogorsk Concert Hall, which of course was in the news more than a year ago now. And this is located very close to Mykino metro station, which is literally right behind the main expo hall. And this is the Makad, pretty much the busiest road in Moscow. It's a very large ring road that encompasses all of Moscow. And this actually separates Moscow from Moscow region. This road right here. So one side of the road is Moscow as a postcode, and the other side would be Moscow region. It's not particularly warm today either. It's currently -2. We're waiting for some snow on the weekend, but for now it's just rainy and wet. Just judging by the number of people who are coming in and out of the main entrance, this is a very popular expo to come to. This is the largest tool expo in Russia. It's very specific and niche, and the amount of vendors here is really quite incredible. They have a, I guess, planogram or map of all the different halls, and there is hundreds and hundreds of different vendors. Now, I generally just go for a wander around and try to show some of the most interesting parts, but just have a look at the list of companies across all of the different maps. This is actually a ticketed event. Pretty much all of the expos that you come to, you've got to register and give your information. I have a media lanyard for today's event. This event itself is actually what they call B2B, or business to business. And generally, everybody that you'll see here are company representatives, or somebody that's involved in some kind of business that requires tools, either construction, manufacturing, designing. And there is a lot of people that make some big decisions in Russia based on these expos. So let's head on inside and get a little bit closer. Just as an interesting note, I'm actually here on day 3, and it runs for 5 days. I will say there is a lot of people in this hall, and there is 7 halls that you can visit. And what most of the companies are doing is they're exhibiting their products and showcasing everything that they either sell or what they might manufacture, and what they want to sell either wholesale or eventually into retail. So a lot of companies that will come to this event will be buyers for hardware stores, hardware hypermarkets, and it might be companies who are buying things for their own company use. So perhaps they're doing house remodeling or some kind of construction, and they'll come to these events to see everything up close. It is really fascinating just to wander around here and take it all in, because of the amount of brands and the amount of people. With all of the conventions that are held here, they're all specific and niche to a certain topic. So a lot of people will come to a convention purely because there's that many companies that will attend. I mean, if there's 500 or 700 companies here, you know, you can see everything involved in your own business in one building. It might take you all day or multiple days to get around to see it. However, if you're patient enough or if you're focused enough, you can find the brand or the company that's displaying their products. It's really a lot to take in and to understand. So there's a combination here of Russian companies, and then it reaches a lot further. So the next lot of companies that would be here would be from neighboring countries, like for instance Belarus, or all of the different CIS countries. And then beyond that, companies from Turkey and into Europe, and then Asia and China. So there is a lot to see. I've been to this event before, and I think every year it gets bigger and bigger, and there's more and more companies showcasing their products. So you'll see where they've got basically all of the products on display, and then depending on the size of the company or their booth, they'll also have seating areas to do deals and to meet the bosses and the management of the companies. And then you'll get smaller companies which have just a display of their goods, and you can then negotiate to make a deal, to find what you want, and hopefully walk away with a good price. I mean, there's no over-the-counter shopping at these sorts of events. It is purely a business-to-business event. So you're going to walk away with a business card, and then hopefully then a deal later on. As I walk around, I will try and point out things that I think are unique or different, or maybe people might be interested in. And there is a lot of companies here that are not just the seller of products, they also sell the parts and all of the equipment involved, essentially in tools. And you'll see here a company that has all of the spare parts that make up products. So if you wanted the cover for a chainsaw, or the switches, or the motors and different things like that, you can find suppliers who have just those products. Even the blades there for lawnmowers, the oils. And it's really interesting in Russia that you can go to shops or businesses that sell the very specific spare parts to repair something like a chainsaw or a drill. And I think a lot of people around the world wouldn't think that's possible, and a lot of people will put it down to wear and tear or old age and just simply buy a new one. But there is a mentality here in Russia that you can fix things, and a lot of people like to fix things themselves by buying the part that you might need or want and replacing it. And it's very fascinating for me. In Australia, we're very limited purely because of the population. We don't have the amount of people that would need things. Have a look at the size of this spirit level. Holy dooly. So they've also got laser levels, of course, but these spirit levels are massive. You know, if you think of Russia and the millions of people and businesses, you know, these sorts of events become quite normal. And the fact that this is all business to business, so the companies bring their representatives, they demonstrate the products, and then what they're trying to do is find a market, whether it be here in Russia or beyond Russia. I was thinking Black & Decker, but it's called Blocker. Also interesting to see the overlap between Russian names and company names in English. And there's a overlap. Not sure what these do, but they seem interesting. Just to give you my tool knowledge, I own an IKEA tool set, and that's it. Jones Professional. American flag right on the side. German flag. Now I know my audience who watches the channel are predominantly in America. So if you might know some of these brands, it'll be interesting to know. I don't know the brand Joneser at all. Now, it'll be interesting to hear or to read people's comments about this particular expo, because naturally it's a bit of a man's world, and I think as you watch the video, the percentage of men who are here is very high, but there is ladies at this event, and there are ladies who make decisions for companies where they might be a buyer or a seller or some kind of representative. So there is a lot of uptake in ladies coming to these events. And just what's interesting for me is the amount of individual companies that are here. There's one that's just got the scaffolding, for instance. And as we walk around, we'll see each unique company with its own products. And whatever they all do. And the amount of large and small businesses as well. So where we see a lot of these larger booths, these are established companies that already have a market here in Russia. Of course, they want to find more business partners. And then you're also going to see some of the companies, particularly from China, that are trying to find suppliers and distributors here in Russia or to any country, basically. So there is individual small companies that are here with stands, and they're selling very, very niche products. And there is just booth after booth showing products. It's also really interesting when you look at the booths, and then they usually put the photographs of their plant or where they're manufacturing things. So they really want to highlight the manufacturing of a product and not necessarily that final retail product. So they want to show you how big they are or how much manufacturing they can do. You call these compactors. In Australia, people call them whackers. Just business after business. With a lot of the different stands as you walk around, they either focus on certain products or a brand name which holds all of the different products under that name. So you'll see here one that's just got saw blades, drill bits associated with circular saws and miter saws and different things. And then what they're trying to find is a way to increase their distribution and to sell their products into more markets. Now, depending on where you live in the world, think about it as how many hardware shops are in your town or city, how many individual ones there are. And in Russia, beyond the federal chain hardware stores, there is a lot of smaller tool markets which sell products closer to home. Where I live, I can walk 5 minutes to my local hardware and tool market, and inside there is about 50 small businesses that sell all of the products that I need for my apartment renovation or house renovation. And I don't even need to go to a chain hardware store because they've got everything in my local shop. And they'll have quite a lot of the brands as well. And then just generally they'll have products for home repair. King, Queen. Again, really interesting, the brand names. I mean, they've got all of these products, tools, drills, saws. This is just one company. One thing I probably should have mentioned at the beginning of the video is another one of my intentions of this video is to look for some of the Western brands that have left Russia. And I found a couple of brands here that have said that they've left Russia, yet quite clearly they're available. Now, this particular company is a supplier of products, obviously tools and machinery. They've been in a business for 25 years, and they've got Honda right here, which are rather well known. Now, Honda, of course, make cars, bikes, tools, machinery. So it's really interesting to see that after a couple of years of saying that you can't get the products, they've stopped supplying them, they've stopped selling them, and then they're sitting right here on the shelf. There is also this brand EFCO, and really interesting, made in Italy. Now, all I really know from Italy is Ferraris and all of the other very well-known things. But made in Italy lawnmowers. Maybe somebody knows EFCO. Now, the noise you can hear in the background is people doing demonstrations of tools. And then also here there is Honda engines in this Italian brand, the Zephyr. Of course, these are light-on lawnmowers. You don't see these a whole lot in Russia, but they are around, and there is a market for them. And once it starts snowing in a couple of days, they won't be used at all for the rest of the summer, or at least until summertime. On the very next booth over, there is crans, and quite a large booth, and they have German products. Now, are they all made in Germany? Might be questionable, because quite often a lot of things are reliant on Chinese parts. And if anybody who is from Germany knows this brand, it'll be very interesting to let me know in the comments. I do like how they've got the partial stripe on there with the German flag on display. There's an interesting brand here called Felicati. Now, it does look Italian, of course, by the name itself, and this was originally an Italian company that was producing tools. It's now actually Chinese owned. However, the brand name is still going. And I have one friend in Italy, David. I know he loves his power tools. I wonder if you know this brand or not. It does actually have the Italian flag right there, founded in 1949. These are now all manufactured in China and then distributed under the Felicati brand. It's just interesting to see so many international companies when I look a little bit closer. I'm not sure how many people know the Felicati vacuum range. By only highlighting just a couple of companies that I noticed that were international brands, you know, there's hundreds of other brands that exist. Now, these are not just Russian companies, they're international brands. And you can see just from the amount of people here and the amount of interest in this expo, you know, the tool market is alive and well. And no matter the economic situation in Russia, there is going to be people that want to buy tools, own tools, used tools, and just the endless amount of companies that are on display here is just incredible. I mean, if I just go to one hardware store, I might only see 2 or 3 brands, and then I come to this sort of event and see hundreds and hundreds of brands. It's just almost head shaking, especially if you come from a country where you just go to your local hardware store and don't really take it in how the tools reach the shelf. And there's a very genuine interest in the specific companies and what they make and what they have and their distribution reach as well. One thing to remember when you're looking at all the people here, not a single person can buy something and take it home. This is only business-to-business dealings. And the most you might end up with is a business card or a keychain or something like that. And all of these companies are looking to do business either with another company or they're trying to find a way to sell more products. And the average consumer isn't coming to this sort of an event. It's really on the next level. And just when you see everybody sitting down at the different tables and chairs, wanting to do business and want to do trade in some form, it's just fascinating. Maybe we don't need to talk to the salespeople anymore. We can just find the robot dog and do business with him. Hans the Roby dog. Really cool. According to the local weather forecast, coming in a few days is the first snow in Moscow. And the shops and companies that sell all of these different snow blowers, this is where they start making their money, and all the different types that they make and sell. So these will end up either in commercial use or perhaps somebody who has a large property. The other popular thing that's going to start making a lot of money very soon are the snow shovel suppliers. And there is individual companies that only sell snow shovels. I'm sure you can use them for other things. There's actually 2 of them back to back here. And of course, seasonally here in Russia, you know, something like a lawnmower may not be popular in wintertime. But now we're coming into winter. These snow plows or snow blowers become hugely popular. There is also a lot of stands where they've got demonstrations going on, and then they've got these large protective glass panels. You can see them doing core holes in cement. So they're demonstrating how the products work and what you can do with them and their abilities. And again, just row after row of companies. Look at the size of these drill bits. I mean, how many times would you need one that big? I mean, of course, these for plumbing use would be very practical. But for retail use, maybe not so much. The branding is so important. You can see the colors just make things stand out and pop. I don't even know what they're selling. Okay, laser levels. They have I think a lot of people want the giveaways at the same time. And the ladies giving out things. I never see the need for people to be getting so anxious to get a gift. I mean, learn about the brand, you know, talk to the staff, and then possibly afterwards you might end up with a gift. But it's just fascinating to watch this. I just want to highlight another company here that I noticed, and I was trying to familiarize myself with the brand. So WorkPro is a brand that has mostly hand tools and mostly things that are for retail use and possibly for professional use. This is an American brand. However, all the products are now made in China, and it does mention that they have American manufacturing, but I can't find anything with it written on the back. And then the other brands up here: Goldblatt, Pony, Swiss Tech. So maybe somebody knows some of these brands. Let me know. My only fear with this video, it might end up being a lot longer than what I was thinking. Just because as I keep walking around, there's just brand after brand, and I really want to show the amount of companies that are here across the entire expo, and just the number of individual booths. And I'm not even walking around going up and down every aisle. I'm just wandering around, and the amount of big and small companies is just incredible. And then you can come across these Chinese companies. So they're actually producing and selling products that don't have brand names. So what they're trying to do is then find a company that would allow them to put their name on the product. So they're all blank and generic, and there's no name except the name of the factory. So we could make the Traveling with Russell brand if we wanted to. And that continues across a lot of this expo, particularly these smaller booths, where the name of the company is really just the factory or the Chinese company. And there's just booth after booth. And also a lot of niche companies, like a supplier of ladders. And is there really a market for all these? I mean, quite clear that there is in Russia, just based on how many people are here and the interest. Check this out. There's a guy here doing tree trimming. This is cool. He's actually doing like ferns or conifers. Ultimately, he wants to sell chainsaws. But how cool is that? Whoa, robot snowblowers. These are cool. There's a couple of interesting companies right here. One is called Obrigado. Original tools from Portugal. And they have just secateurs, I think, or tree pruning tools. And then there's one called Okinawa, which perhaps is a Japanese brand. So they've got mostly gardening products. And then there's one here that's just called Finland. And there's quite a few things there. There's the European flag, Finnish quality. So maybe somebody knows the Finland tool company and can tell me something else about it. Just so interesting to see all of these, I guess, Western brands on display. Now, a lot of times what we're looking at here is one company that's the distributor of the brands, and all of the different companies fall under one umbrella. Has anybody seen before Finland hoses? I don't think I've seen them myself until now. Perhaps it's better to ask everybody who's watching the video for you to give me information, because when I'm looking up these companies or asking some of the employees, it's not quite as detailed the information about if they're officially in Russia or if they've left the Russian market. Here is Champion. Now I know them as a battery company, however they've got tools, gardening equipment, even generators are right there. Looks like they maybe sponsor one of the racing teams as well. This middle part here in between the pavilions is really where all the people are, and you know how busy it is. Hans Kuna. I understand this is a Russian company. Now they have limited manufacturing in Russia, but a lot of it's coming from China, which I think that's a very common answer when you ask everybody about where all the products are made or manufactured, and even companies that are European companies. They're not manufacturing in Europe anymore because it's just not cost effective. I think just standing in this middle walkway, it gives you an idea of the amount of people that are here. And there's another 5 more halls to walk around. I'm trying to come up with a logical thumbnail for the video, but it's very difficult because there's just too many things to fit into one frame. Coming over to the next hall, this is where it gets a little bit quieter now and a little bit less background noise. And this is where a lot of the smaller individually made products are brought, and mostly all Chinese companies, where they've got, again, all of these generic products. So they've got items that don't have any branding on them. They can be produced and packaged and sold under a private label. So a lot of things look very much like they've come from Temu or from some kind of a website. And some of them are quite small, some of them are bigger. And what you're seeing a lot is this very consistent color theme to the brands, of course, from other brands. India Zone. What? The arch rivals of Australian cricket. They're in the house. Just talking about seeing the Indian flag there. So in the different halls, they've got sections where they've got international companies that have got booths and stands and all of their products. And the Indian section, so there's another company right here, they've got 40 different booths or companies that are represented here and selling quite specific things, like you'll see here a vice or tool bags. The company that I just showed have hoses, and these are manufactured in India. And they also have the hose reels and these wall mountable things. It's so interesting to see Indian companies represented at this expo. I really hope you're enjoying this walk around of Mitex. And I just want to say a hello to Rohan, one of the guys at the Indian stand there. Australia and India have a very big rivalry with cricket, and you know, we secretly love and hate each other because of that. And just such a nice guy to chat to. He's come to Moscow only for this tool expo, and he was explaining about the number of other companies here and that they're trying to find suppliers and a market here in Russia and also other neighboring CIS countries. So because this is so well supported and the amount of people that come to this, they don't have to just focus on Russian companies. They can look for somebody from Georgia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. And if they can just get that one company, they can find a lot of business going forward. It's really interesting to see all of these different companies and these smaller booths, because it's a little bit easier to have a chat with them and talk with them and try to understand what they're doing or what their goal is of the expo. Now, ultimately, it's to sell more tools or to make more connections with buyers and ultimately sellers. Another company here from India that has hand tools. So what they're doing, they're displaying basically their entire range, and then where they can find a market for them. The only thing when you come to an expo like this, there is just booth after booth after booth, and it's endless the amount of different companies there are doing very similar things. I just find it fascinating. I will keep repeating it, because coming to the expos like the Tool Expo, the Machinery Expos, all the different food expos that they have, it just opens your eyes to a more global economy. You know, not realizing how big the world is, especially if you're from a smaller country. And just the fact that there's individual companies that are looking for markets around the world. There's a company here that's got petrol pumps and I think all the things associated with remote petrol storage and pumping. How many people need petrol pumps in the world? I know that a lot of people around the world won't admit the fact that China is such a superpower, and their ability to manufacture things, export things, and then ultimately distribute things. But just walking around these back lanes of the expo, and you're seeing individual companies, one after the other, with just shelves and shelves of products. And all of these don't have names on them. They are all brandless. And what their goal is, of course, is to find a company that will want to buy them and then have them packaged and branded. And there's a company here that's just got chainsaw blades and teeth. So you can find the specific manufacturer of even just a component of something. All of the batteries for cordless drills. And these don't have names on them. All you're seeing is the factory's name or the company's name. There's one over here with gloves. That's all they're doing is just gloves. And these booths just keep going and going. And then who you're seeing walking around here are buyers and sellers of products. And they maybe want to buy a hammer and then brand it for their company and then sell it under their own umbrella company. There are just hundreds of companies that just open your eyes a lot to how big China is and maybe how small the rest of the world is. If you've reached this point of the video, thank you so much. If you like these types of videos, click the subscribe button, post a comment, thumbs up. Got one more haul to show you, and this is actually up on the third level of the convention center itself. And this is all of the foreign companies that have booths. And there's quite a lot. I'm not going to show all of them. At least walk around just to give you an idea and a feeling about, you know, how many different companies are here represented. And I just find it so interesting. It's probably hard to get an idea of just how many companies are up here, and these are all Chinese companies and mostly all suppliers or manufacturers of the actual physical items and the amount of different things that they have. Now, the first thing they're always going to do is hand you a business card, and then you can chat to the different staff. And then actually their posters, interestingly, are in English. However, the people that are going to be coming here are predominantly Russian speaking. So a lot of the stands, they really struggle to interact. Now, the smart thing really to do is to bring a translator who knows Russian and Chinese, or whichever dialect they speak. That way they can do business a little bit easier. What you'll see this entire way down, just this middle corridor here, are individual companies that are selling really only one or two things. And all of them are unbranded. They're basically generic companies now. They've mostly always got their poster about the factory and how big it is and how much they produce. And then some of them will have branding on them. But mostly the branding is for another company or somebody that they're producing the products for. And there is, I'd say up here, about 100 or 200 individual booths. And you could spend an entire day just going booth to booth looking for something. Now what they're wanting to do, of course, is sell in wholesale. This is in no way a retail. And they're wanting to find companies who will then sell their products. These roofing nailers, and you can see here they're using Google Translate to talk about the products. And depending on the person, they'll be okay to do that. And others will just walk away instantly. Glue guns. And this familiar color of tools. But again, these are all generic or unbranded. But they've got the full range of products I find it really fascinating because ultimately at some point what we're seeing here will end up downstairs in one of the Russian company's assortment. Maybe we need sprayers, so gardening related things. Somebody supplying screws and nuts and bolts, like very, very small items. And then they have detailed posters about the factory and who they supply to. So all these companies would buy screws from them. And we need wheelbarrow wheels. I mean, just this upstairs area alone, I could make an entire video. And I think already most people aren't watching at this point. It's just so interesting. Now we can obviously imagine that a buyer from a bigger company would come here and then want to buy paint rollers or paint brushes. How about tape measures and measuring wheels, clothes dryers. I think I'll just do the one walk down the middle of this because I think this is showing it perfectly. How about cable ties? So here you'll see OEM reusable cable ties. So they've just got generic packaging as you see it, and then they would then actually put your branding on there. Maybe I need some staples. Screws and bolts. It's obviously so exciting for everybody. It's a long expo, this. I mean, I'm here on day 3 of 5 days. And for them to be here from morning till night, obviously how busy each stand is will vary a lot. Grinding discs, drill bits. And this is ultimately where the businesses get done. I love these mini chainsaws. I think they're so cool. I don't have a garden or any plants, but I think they're really cool. Should I start my own tool company? All I need to do is find a brand, come up with some themed name, and I'm good. Diaphragm carburetors. How small are these? What would you possibly use these for? If anybody can tell me. There's even things that I don't know what they're doing. Anvils. And mini vices. Ratchet straps. So there's another 5 more aisles. Not just this one. Pliers. There is Allen keys and tools. More tape measures. Utility knives. So again, all of these individual companies and then the staff that are at these booths, you can make contact with them. They can let you know the prices, how they can ship them to Russia, for instance, that we're here, or they could ship it to Australia if I wanted to. Mini nailers. You can decide what color it's going to be, what name it's going to be, everything. Oh, these are cool. These are the agitators for concrete. You stick it in there and it aerates the concrete. Now I am here later in the afternoon, so I think a lot of the staff are at different levels of energy by now. And it's really interesting, just the engagement. Some of them are super friendly and want to chat, and some are hesitant because of language barrier. Ladders. So the Shandong Juendang Industrial makes these ladders. And there isn't anything that I don't think I can not find by walking around here. And then the next aisle is no different. I think this is a good point to end the video as I walk down another aisle, and you can see behind me all the different stands. I'll just jump in front of these people taking a photo. So interesting to come to this. I will leave the link in the description of the Mitex Expo if you want to look at it on a website. I think unless you come here, I don't think you actually feel how big it is. Even looking through all of the companies on the website and the list and even the map outside. Just endless booths of companies. Now upstairs here is all of the Chinese companies where we started the video, and all of the halls down there were all predominantly Russian companies and mixed in with other countries as well. We're just aisle after aisle of products. And you know, I'm living in an apartment that we recently did some renovations to, and I don't really need any of these tools. One of the secrets of coming to these expos, if you come on the last day, they sell some of the products and you can buy them for cash. Particularly these Chinese suppliers, they've shipped the things over here and won't take them back. So they'll actually sell them to people. And a lot of people who come to these expos know this secret already. And they'll happily sell you pretty much everything on display. And you can get some bargains because they're selling them to you at their wholesale price. Now it's just a one-time purchase, so it might last forever, it might last for 5 minutes. But it's a good little secret if you ever come on the last day of an expo in Russia. No matter which expo you come to, it's something interesting. Thanks everybody, thumbs up, post a comment, subscribe if you want to. And I think let's find something interesting to make as the secret word as I'm walking down here near the end. I've just found something in front of me. If you're watching to the end, thank you so much for watching through the video. And let me just turn with my back right here. And you can see in the background hammers. So if I see the word hammer in the comments, you've made it to the last few minutes. If you want to follow me on social media, my Telegram link will be right here. And then another video on the channel will come up right here. So you can follow me and watch another video on the channel right now. Thanks everybody. I'm off on another adventure. Bye.